What's up, guys? It's Analyst, and we're back again, this time for week 2. Also, don't worry, I have water with me this week, so I will not be needing to take a break halfway through, and I will not be choking on my own saliva/oxygen halfway through the video as well. So, you guys know the deal. I'm going to go over every single game coming up. I do have some notes here about some specifics I want to get into in terms of some of these matchups and players. Overall, I hope you guys had a good first week 1. Some surprises, but I talk about that a lot on my Instagram. So if you guys follow me there at fantasy.football.analyst, you'll see me talk about this stuff there already. So we're just going to talk about week 2. Let's jump straight into it. First game on Thursday night, which is today. If you're listening to this, I'm recording this Wednesday night and posting it Thursday morning. So Washington football team at home hosting the New York Giants. Washington football team 3-point favorites, 40-point total. It's a pretty low total. Just do a quick scan. This is my first time seeing it. This is my first time seeing a lot of these matchups. So just so you guys know, this is a combination of research on individual players as well as, this Dallas over-under is going to be much higher. And this Kansas City Baltimore. We got some spicy games this week. Okay, cool. But yeah, so I do individual research on players during the week when I'm getting these snap counts and targets and target shares and stuff like that. That's when I really do my research, but then I kind of look at the matchups here. So Washington at home, 3-point favorites. Ryan Fitzpatrick on IR. He's expected to be out about 8 weeks, maybe even longer. We'll see. Taylor Heinicke coming in. He's expected to get the start. Well, I really don't have anyone else, so yeah, he's expected to get the start here. All right, so do I trust Taylor Heinicke in this matchup? Do I want to start him against the Giants? Probably not, right? I mean, like, as a streamer, maybe. Teddy Bridgewater was able to have a pretty good game against these guys, but, I think they do have pieces like Jabril Peppers, Logan Ryan made a ton of plays last week, Azeez Ojulari, and they have some other guys on the defensive line that aren't bad. Blake Martinez, as always, as a linebacker group. So they have some pieces in that Giants defense, enough so to not make me think this is a walk in the park for Taylor Heinicke. But regardless, I'm very comfortable starting Antonio Gibson. He was injured earlier in the week, but he's upgraded to a full practice. He'll have no limitations going into this week. Funny enough, Antonio Gibson, I'm looking at it right here. He had 65% of the snaps last week, and he led his team in target share. Right? So, from that point of view, a lot of people had thought going into the year that he was going to be, splitting the work with J.D. McKissic, but when it comes down to it, that was just not the case at all. Gibson had 25 touches next to Patterson's 3 and McKissick's 2. So McKissick doesn't even seem to be the second guy in this rotation if you look outside of snaps. So fire up Antonio Gibson. He's looking like a running back 1. He's looking like a complete workhorse. And I think he's going to have a great game against the Giants here. We saw Melvin Gordon break out that huge run against them last week. So I think there's a lot of hope for Antonio Gibson to have a pretty good game here. Wide receivers, Terry McLaurin, he didn't have the hottest week last week, but he's got a better matchup now. And, not really. He's going to be against James Bradbury. But for the most part, Terry McLaurin, he's a very talented receiver. He'll be fine. Logan Thomas, he'll also be fine. Those are the only guys I'm trusting in this offense, right? Antonio Gibson, Logan Thomas, and Terry McLaurin. Diami Brown, he is the wide receiver 2 in this offense right now. He did play some snaps in the slot, although Adam Humphries, when he was on the field, he was the slot guy. But, so Diami Brown ran the second most routes of any wide receiver on the Washington football team last week. So if you're looking for wide receiver 2 in this offense, it is rookie Diami Brown. But I don't know how much volume he's going to get. I don't know what the game script's going to look like. They are 3-point favorites, but who knows. So the Giants are just not a well put together team at all. I do like the Washington defense this week. So getting into the Giants, right? Daniel Jones against the Washington football team. Please tell me you have better options, right? Just do not start Daniel Jones against the Washington football team in that defensive line. Running back wise, Saquon Barkley. What to do with Saquon Barkley? I'm treating Saquon Barkley this week not as okay, now he has a chance to improve on what he did. I'm treating this as okay, I'm avoiding him this week again. Because last week, first game, he was limited. He didn't even play 50% of the snaps, right? And now he's got a short week. He had his first action in over a year. And I guess under a year, because it was game 2 he got hurt. But he had his first action in about a year. And they're going to, throw him into the mix and give him more work? I think this will be the last week where he does see limited work. And then after this, he's got a long week ahead of him before they have their next game, and we'll start to see his snaps amp up. But for this week, it's not a great matchup. I don't know exactly how many snaps he's going to play. I'm avoiding Saquon Barkley if possible. If you have another playable running back, I would go that route. I would not force myself into starting Saquon Barkley this week. I could be wrong, eat my words. I very well I can. He's very talented. But at the same time, based on what I saw Sunday and based on the timetable from Sunday to today, and the fact that he's still limited to practice, I'm just not going to take a chance with starting Saquon Barkley this week. Wide receiver wise, Kenny Golladay, he had some, he did okay last week, right? He didn't really act as this team's wide receiver 1. I'm okay starting him as a flex / high-end wide receiver 3. Sterling Shepard, at the same time, he really just kind of took the lead, and he played great. I mean, I mentioned him as someone who was a potential sleeper, but for week 1, and he really came in. He had over 100 yards. He had a touchdown. He looked great. And I think we're going to see a similar story this week against the Washington football team. They're going to be playing from behind, which is at least what I believe. He's probably not going to score this week, but I'd imagine he's going to get some targets, especially with Evan Ingram also out yet again. And as I mentioned, Saquon Barkley not being 100%. So Sterling Shepard, if you need to, he's a good enough flex start. But just so you guys know, with anything, you want to make sure you're starting your Thursday players in your running back and wide receiver spot. You do not want to be starting these guys in your flex, especially with COVID, right? Picture this. You start Sterling Shepard in your flex, right? And then it comes down to the weekend, and you find out, one of your wide receivers has COVID, and they won't be playing this week. And now you need a wide receiver from your bench that you can put in, right? Because you can only put in a wide receiver. You can't put in a running back or wide receiver. So if you have a third running back who's really good, and you want to put him in, you can't, as opposed to that player now being in the flex and you being able to put that running back in. I don't know if I described that great, but you guys get the point. Put Thursday players in your running back and wide receiver spots. Do not put them in your flex. Okay? Giants defense, I don't think I'm considering the Giants defense here. I don't think they'll be terrible, but I do have some faith in Taylor Heineke, so I don't see this as a potential win for them. Feels good to be hydrated. Okay, so now we get into the main slate of games. We have the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the San Francisco 49ers. Both these teams coming off pretty good wins. Jalen Hurts, after how he looked last week, I'm comfortable starting him against San Francisco 49ers. I think he'll do fine. I might have him just outside my top 10 because he's going to be constantly under pressure. But his offensive line did look great last game, so I'm fine with starting Jalen Hurts. Miles Sanders, a little more concerned here. He wasn't too involved as a pass catcher, or he did have a pass catching role. I thought it was going to get completely taken from him. Nick Sirianni is really implementing this Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor type role, to where Miles Sanders is playing the Jonathan Taylor role as to he is owning all the rushing, and he's still getting sprinkled into the passing game. And then Nyheim Hines, being Kenny Gainwell, is kind of being thrown into this mix as this pass catcher. So, yeah, I mean, I'm okay with Miles Sanders this week. I would start him over Saquon. That's, my lack of confidence in Saquon. But, yeah, that's kind of where I'm sitting there. So I'm okay with Miles Sanders as like a low-end running back too. Now getting into the wide receivers, Devonta Smith, after he did last week, he's 100% worth that flex, especially, I believe it was Jason Verrett, the San Francisco 49ers' best corner. He just tore his ACL. He's had a ton of bad luck with injuries over the course of his career, and it just got worse. So the 49ers have a little bit of a hole at corner, which could open things up for a guy like Devonta Smith. Zach Ertz right now still dealing with an injury. Based on Dallas Goedert's involvement, I would feel comfortable starting Dallas Goedert. And if you have him, chances are you probably don't have any other options. I do like guys like Tyler Higby over him and Logan Thomas, so and Noah Fant. So if you have any of those guys, I would play them over him. I didn't talk about Jalen Rieger. He did make some plays last week, and I guess the Eagles will be in more so of a passing situation this week. I just don't know how much trust I want to put into this offense and saying, okay, Rieger's an every week flex. Like, since when can you have two wide receivers in Philadelphia be trustworthy on a week-to-week basis? So I'm going to hold off on Jalen Rieger for a little bit just out of caution. If you want to play him, I understand. He did okay. He might be worth a flex play, but I want to see more data before I keep throwing Rieger into my lineups. Don't feel great about the Philly defense. San Francisco, you get Jimmy Garoppolo. Look, this Eagles defense, it could be Matt Ryan and the Falcons just being awful, but the Philly defense did look pretty good. They did look pretty put together last week, so I'm not treating this as the typical cakewalk that the Philadelphia secondary is. So Jimmy G, he might do okay. There's a pretty decent total in this game, so I think he'll end up being fine. But this is not a matchup where I'm like, okay, use him as a streamer, right? Trey Lance also getting involved doesn't really help Jimmy G as well. So until Trey Lance takes over and becomes the full-time starter, I don't really want to touch too much of this quarterback room. Wide receivers, the big story here, right? Raheem Mostert, he's going to have knee surgery. He's going to be out for the entire year, which leaves Elijah Mitchell. It leaves JaMychal Hasty. And it leaves rookie Trey Sermon. They did sign Kerryon Johnson to the practice squad. He has not been elevated to the active roster at this time. And they do have Jeff Wilson coming in later in the season. So, what do we do about this backfield? Look, Elijah Mitchell had a fantastic game. Everybody's number one waiver pickup. He did it against the Lions, right? The Lions are a cakewalk in terms of trying to rush against. That's why I was such a big fan of Raheem Mostert last week. Last time I ever put faith in a 49ers running back. But if he had not gotten hurt, I think he could have had a pretty good game against the Lions. I think he would have been close to an RB1 or could have done similar to what Elijah Mitchell did. So it was really more so the matchup. Not that I don't think Elijah Mitchell is a talented player, because I do. But I don't trust that Kyle Shanahan is going to be like, okay, here's our guy. Right? We saw what he did against the Lions. He's now our guy. Kyle Shanahan's never been like that. Trey Sermon's going to come in. He's the clear goal line guy, right? He's the guy built for that goal line role. JaMychal Hasty had a target. Elijah Mitchell did not. Elijah Mitchell was running some routes last week. It's just getting the running backs involved in the passing game has never been a point of emphasis for a guy like Shanahan. So, limited passing upside. Limited pass catching upside. He's going to be splitting the work. He might not get the goal line work. You're going to rely on super efficiency out of the backfield for Elijah Mitchell. I don't know. It's not a situation where I feel overly confident starting Elijah Mitchell this week. I understand for a lot of people they may not have a choice. And he could end up being okay. I don't know. I just don't like it. I'm getting a lot of bad vibes from this game from the 49ers backfield. So I'm personally avoiding starting Elijah Mitchell this week. I understand if you're not. Someone who I'm completely good avoiding this week is Brandon Ayuk. After putting up that fat 0 last week, where the hell did that come from? Apparently he's being immature. He's not taking this as seriously as he should. He's not putting in the effort, so Brandon Ayuk is getting the bench treatment right now. He's not seeing many playing time, which leaves Deebo Samuel to really act as the wide receiver one for this team. So, that being said, I do like Deebo Samuel. I don't like any of these other wide receivers. I think Deebo and George Kittle are fine plays. Not trusting these running backs. And 49ers defense I'm okay with, but don't get overly confident. This is a high point total, and Jalen Hurts did look good last week. Next game here, we got Indianapolis at home hosting the LA Rams. A 3.5 point spread. I'm very surprised. I would think the Rams would be higher favorites, but whatever. So, Carson Wentz, not touching him against the Rams. No, thank you. Running back wise, I think Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines are fine this week. Jonathan Taylor, just from a volume perspective, is going to be fine. I do like Nyheim Hines a lot this week. And I think this spread is going to increase as the week goes on. I think the Rams are going to end up being 4 or 5 point favorites. I think the Colts are going to be playing from behind. We saw last week Nyheim Hines is basically the wide receiver 1 in Indianapolis. And one thing that we did see with the Rams and what they like to do a lot is they like to leave this open, this gaping hole right in the front in their defense, right? And I think that's a perfect spot for Nyheim Hines to come in, kind of tag together a bunch of catches, So the Rams with their defense, they'd rather give up the small play than give up the big play. They just don't give up any big plays. So you're going to need people who are going to depend on volume. I think that's kind of Nyheim Hines' thing. In that right open area past the defensive line, I think Hines is going to sneak in. He could grab 6, 7, 8, 9 balls, and he could give you some return this week. That being said, no Colts wide receiver is on my radar this week. If anything, Zach Pascal, because again, as I mentioned, they kind of leave the middle of that field open. So if he's playing in the slot, that might be ideal for him to rack up some catches. But Michael Pittman on the outside, Michael Strachan on the outside, no thank you. None of these tight ends have been viable enough. No thank you. Rams, Matt Stafford, he lit it up last week against the Bears. I think he could do something very similar against the Colts this week. We saw Russell Wilson go crazy on them, so love Matt Stafford here. Daryl Henderson. Look, I had my doubts, but as of right now, he's looking like the workhorse in this backfield. I think that's going to change as Sony Michel gets more and more acclimated. But as of right now, I am riding Daryl Henderson until I'm not able to. Cooper Kupp, huge target share last week. He's got a little bit of a tougher matchup this week against Kenny Moore, who typically plays the nickel. So I think this match does favor guys like Robert Woods and I guess Van Jefferson. But what was really interesting is Robert Woods was losing snaps to Deshaun Jackson. So I'm a little cautious on Woods, how much involvement he's going to get in this offense. As of right now, he's still an every week play, but just have some caution going into it. I think this is a matchup that favors him. But we'll see. Relatively high point total. Tyler Higby, look, this dude played every snap. Again, another guy I had my doubts on, but he is very much involved, and he seems to be an every week guy. Anytime you have a tight end who's on every snap and actually getting targeted, he's worth playing. So Tyler Higby, full go. Rams defense, I'm okay playing as well. We have Miami at home hosting Buffalo. Buffalo 3.5 point favorites. 47.5 point total. Not bad. Tua looked okay against the Patriots last week. He didn't really make any huge errors. And now he's got Will Fuller coming back. And Tua Tagovailoa. I think I saw somewhere it's Tagovailoa. Either way. His average pass distance was about 10 yards. And Patrick Mahomes' average pass distance last week was about 9 yards. So, to me, what that says is, look, they're letting Tua take shots down the field. And now that you have Will Fuller back, I mean, what's better than to have Will Fuller in that position? So, although I don't love the matchup, right? I don't love the matchup for Tua. If you're in a 2 QB league and you're worried about him playing against Buffalo, I'm okay with it. I'm okay enough with it. Wide receiver-wise, I think this is a game where Miami's going to be playing from behind. Myles Gaskin, I think he'll be fine in a PPR, right? I know Naji Harris couldn't get anything done on the ground, but he won't. Naji Harris doesn't have. He's not as involved as a pass catcher as Gaskin is, so I think Gaskin's going to be okay. Wide receiver-wise, I had mentioned they have Will Fuller back. Do I want to throw him in my lineup right away? Is it going to be Jalen Waddle? Again, we have not seen this offense with Will Fuller, Devontae Parker, and Jalen Waddle on the field at the same time. So if I can be cautious, if I can sit Jalen Waddle, if I can sit Will Fuller, I will. But if you want to play Fuller, he has huge upside on a week-to-week basis. I mentioned how Tua is actually taking shots down the field. So if you need to start him in your flex, I'm okay with it. But if you can wait and see, wait and see. I don't think if this was a game against like Detroit or against Chicago, then I'd be like, okay, those are shit secondaries. You can start Will Fuller and be fine. But this is a wait and see type thing. Mike Gesicki, look, I thought he was going to do pretty good with Will Fuller gone. I don't even think he got targeted. If he did, it was not much. Durham Smythe played most of the game. Yeah, I don't know what's happening with Gesicki, but right now he's going to ride the bench. He's going to ride the bench for me in a lot of leagues. Buffalo, Josh Allen not coming off his best game, but he still got it done towards the end. I think this is a better game for him. Running backs, look, Zach Moss, surprise inactive last week. It seems like I haven't even seen anything about why he's a surprise inactive. Maybe they're just not confident where he's at. He still needs to learn more, but it was Devin Singletary, it was Matt Breida, and Singletary played about 70% of the snaps. So if Zach Moss is a healthy scratch again, then I'll consider Devin Singletary a decent flex. And that's that. I can't believe Zach Moss just, after this whole offseason, just inactive. Wide receiver wise, Stephon Diggs as always, you know what to do. Gabriel Davis, Cole Beasley, and Emmanuel Sanders. Gabriel Davis, as of right now, is not practicing halfway through the week. We'll have to see how that progresses, but there's a chance he may not play. If so, I mean, Cole Beasley, we had our doubts, and with COVID and everything, and the way he was against getting the vaccine and whatever. I feel like a lot of people kind of dropped his draft stock in that respect, but he still had a ton of targets. He was still very much playable, so I think Cole Beasley's in the cards as a flex / wide receiver 3. Tight end, Dawson Knox, not getting enough for me to be interested. Neither defense here I'm really interested in. Jets at home hosting New England. Really sad about this one. I live in New Jersey, and normally I like to go to this game. Wasn't able to go last year, and unfortunately, for a multitude of reasons, I will not be able to go this year. But it's okay, because I'll still get to watch the Patriots cream the Jets. They are 6-point favorites in this game. Look, the Jets just could not get anything going last game against the Panthers. The Panthers have a sneaky good defense, so I don't totally blame them. But look, Zach Wilson's going to have some early troubles. He's going to rely on Corey Davis a ton. Elijah Moore did not get the work that we were hoping he was going to. So Zach Wilson, I do not feel comfortable starting. Running back wise, this is a complete mess. Ty Johnson led this backfield with 53% of the snaps. Outside of that, look, it was a complete handful. No running back established himself as the one. No running back got more work than the other. Just don't start anyone from this backfield, right? Wide receivers, Elijah Moore, I want to see involvement before I throw in my lineup. And there's a chance Jameson Crowder might be back this week. So Corey Davis is the only wide receiver I feel comfortable with. And with Stephon Gilmore still out, and Corey Davis's history against the Patriots and having big plays and big games against them, I'm okay with playing Corey Davis this week. Tight ends, no tight ends from the Jets that I'm really interested in. On the flip side, the Patriots, Mac Jones, look, this Jets secondary is absolute crap. So Mac Jones, I don't see him as a high upside streamer, but you can start him if you need to. I had mentioned before that the average pass distance for Tua and Mahomes, Mac Jones' average pass distance is like 6.5, right? 6.5 yards. So a guy like Nelson Aguilar, who had some big plays last week, he could do it again this week, but Jacoby Myers had like 9 targets. He ran more routes than any other Patriots wide receiver. He's the clear number 1 wide receiver here. So I think Jacoby Myers is going to have a decent game. The tight ends, it's still a toss-up about who's getting more targets. So I kind of want to see that still play out. And it seems like neither of these guys are going to, jump in and be that number 1. And this could be a game where the Patriots kind of run out the clock. So Damian Harris had that ugly fumble at the end of the game, but he did have over 100 yards. He got some involvement in the passing game too, which was great. So I think Damien Harris is going to get a chance to redeem himself here. I think he'll see 15, 20 carries if he takes that for over 100. You could have a good game with some passes sprinkled in. I think Damien Harris is in a good spot. So I'm starting Damien Harris this week. Jacoby Myers I'm okay with starting. And I do like the Patriots defense as well. Am I biased? Who knows? Jacksonville hosting Denver. Oh boy. So after Trevor Lawrence's first appearance and after Jacksonville got torn up, absolutely shredded by Tyrod Taylor, Mark Ingram, and the Houston Texans, the Denver Broncos are 6-point favorites. Looks like Trevor Lawrence is going to be playing from behind a lot, and that's really going to favor the three wide receivers being Laviska Shenault, DJ Chark, and Marvin Jones. So as of right now, Trevor Lawrence is a maybe like a mid-tier quarterback 2. Not someone I'm really excited to throw into my lineup, but he could get the job done. Wide receiver-wise, Carlos Hyde had like more carries than James Robinson. Robinson's getting some light passing work involvement. Isn't a mess. I'm sitting both, and Denver has been pretty stagnant against running back, so I'm sitting James Robinson this week pretty easily. I'm avoiding starting him. And again, I mentioned how this favors the other guys. I'll start Marvin Jones, DJ Chark, and Laviska Shenault as flex plays until one of these guys becomes the clear favorite. Last week, DJ Chark inched out as the favorite, but this week it could be Laviska, it could be another guy. If there's one thing we did see against Denver last week is that Sterling Shepard had this huge game, and he plays in the slot. And as far as I know, Bryce Callahan, the one of the better nickel corners in the league, is... I'm just going to make sure I'm... Does he play for the... Does he still play for the Broncos? Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty sure he does, but maybe he's just not playing well, because for a while he was one of the best nickel corners in the league. After what Sterling Shepard did, and considering how many plays Shepard played from the slot, I feel like I do favor Viska a little bit in this matchup. So I like Laviska the most out of these three wide receivers, but all three of them are flex worthy. James O'Shaughnessy. I don't know where that came from, but Chris Manhertz caught a touchdown, and James O'Shaughnessy had like 8 and 9 targets. So I don't know. I want to see a trend before I call James O'Shaughnessy a thing. But right now I'm not touching any of these Jacksonville tight ends. As for Denver, right? Teddy Bridgewater had a good game. As we know, Jerry Jeudy now on IR. He has a high ankle sprain. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. Recent report came out today saying it's probably going to be closer to 6. Seems pretty serious. Meaning, we have Courtney Sutton, who was not very involved last week, and this is a better matchup to be involved. I think this is going to be a Courtney Sutton bounce back game. KJ Hamler and Tim Patrick. KJ Hamler was getting first team reps with Jerry Jeudy out. If he plays in the slot, I think he could be on the come up. So I think Tim Patrick and KJ Hamler both worth picking up and stashing on the bench to see what they do. But I love this game for Noah Fant. I'm much more optimistic in this game for Courtland Sutton than I was last week for Courtland Sutton. So I think Sutton's a decent start, and I think Fant's a great start. Running back wise, I'm okay with flexing Javonte, and I'm okay with flexing Melvin Gordon. Right, this is a team that got ran over by Mark Ingram, who was inactive last year. David Johnson and Mark Ingram both scored last week. Did Phillip Lindsay score too? Am I crazy, or did Phillip Lindsay also score a touchdown? Now I'm curious, right? Because if 3 running backs scored a touchdown against one team, I think you can start Javonte Williams, and I think you can start Melvin Gordon. Javonte Williams actually out-touched Melvin Gordon. So, excuse me, guys. I just really want to see. Phillip Lindsay also scored. So, 3 running backs for the Houston Texans scored a touchdown last week. Start Javonte, start Melvin Gordon. You know, start them both. Let them rip, right? Beyblade? No. Denver defense I think Jacksonville is going to score a little more, but there's going to be some picks, there's going to be some sacks, so I'm okay playing the Denver defense from an impact play point of view. Las Vegas coming off that win against the Ravens at home. First time playing in their new stadium. They now take on Pittsburgh, who was able to inch out the win against the Buffalo Bills last week. Pittsburgh still 5.5 point favorites. Look, this Vegas secondary is not great, right? That linebacking crew is not great. Max Crosby and that defensive line have improved a lot, but they still have a pretty decent hole in that linebacker group and their secondary as a whole. So I'm starting up Deontay Johnson, who had a 31% target share this week, as a high-end wide receiver 2. Claypool and Juju, both flex plays. Juju had a pretty high target share as well. Naji Harris, I think he can bounce back here, right? Naji Harris had 100% of the team's snaps last week. So it's only a matter of time before he sees the right matchup and really start to ramp things up. So I'm 100% fine starting Naji Harris, hoping for a bounce back. Well, not a bounce back because he's never really bounced, but hoping for his first bounce, I guess. Big Ben, I mean, I understand the intrigue. I think this could quietly become a shootout, but we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. I'm okay with starting Big Ben as a streamer if needed, but my expectations are not very high. Eric Ebron, not doing enough for me to be interested in. In terms of this Las Vegas offense, I wasn't confident in Josh Jacobs last week, and he scored 2 touchdowns, so I feel like for him it just kind of boils down to if I think the Vegas Raiders have a chance of winning, right? Because last week the trend was either easy matchup or a win for Vegas, and those were the guidelines for Josh Jacobs to be usable. I don't think they have a chance at winning this game, but I didn't think they had a chance at winning the game last week either. So I'm erring on the side of caution here. I am going to avoid Josh Jacobs if possible, especially because he had an injury report come in today saying he's not practicing, and the reason was everything. I mean, this man is hurting right now. And if Kenyon Drake is on those waivers, you might want to stash him on your bench. He had a ton of targets last week. Look, it's basically Darren Waller, right? This is the only person I feel comfortable with. I don't necessarily feel comfortable with starting Derek Carr. But yeah, this is the Darren Waller show, right? Not really worth talking about anyone else all that much. Carolina Panthers at home hosting the New Orleans Saints and Jameis Winston. Sam Darnold, he did not look good last week. Contrary to the fact that he had this 1 touchdown to Robbie and they won the game, I mean, Sam Darnold did not look good. So I'm going to have my doubts. Robbie Anderson, I'm selling high. I'm selling as high as possible. He had less targets than Terrace Marshall. He seems to be the big player, go home type guy. He's not playing in the slot like he was last year. He's not getting the targets that he was last year. So I'm selling Robbie as high as I can. Terrace Marshall is getting more targets than him. This is DJ Moore and Chris McCaffrey, right? Chris McCaffrey was the running back 1 last week, and he didn't get a single touchdown, right? He is the undoubtedly running back 1. You are starting him no matter what. I'm okay starting DJ Moore. I am not okay starting Robbie, and I'm still not okay starting Terrace Marshall. So that's the guys I feel comfortable with this week. Also, not starting Sam Darnold. Jameis Winston, on the other hand, I mean, as good as the front 7 is for this Carolina defense, Brian Burns, Hassan Reddick, Shaq Thompson had a huge game. Alvin Kamara every week is a must start, right? Jameis Winston and this going against the secondary, which has some holes in it. They're just not a great secondary. I think this could be a bounce back game for Marquez Callaway. Marquez Callaway ran more routes than any other Saints wide receiver, and by a decent margin as well. So he was operating as the team's wide receiver 1, but he was lined up against Jair Alexander for about 40% of his snaps. And, on top of that, it just, the way the game worked out, Winston barely had to pass the ball. So I think this is a bounce-back game for Marquez Callaway. I think he is, at your own risk, worth a flex start, right? Winston at the same time, I do like him this week. I think this is a game that favors more so downfield passing rather than the short passing game. So this is a game where Jameis Winston can excel. That being said, Adam Troutman, Juwan Johnson, this is another wait-and-see type deal because for whatever reason, Adam Troutman led this team in targets last week. Very small sample size. I think Jameis Winston threw the ball like 20 times. He had like less than 150 yards, but still 5 touchdowns. So, yeah, I'm avoiding Adam Troutman. I'm avoiding Juwan Johnson. Maybe Juwan Johnson for touchdown upside, but I think other guys are going to get involved over Adam Troutman this week, so I'm erring on the side of caution there. New Orleans defense, I'm okay starting. Because, again, I think Sam Darnold's, he's going to make mistakes. Okay, I'm going to label this the halftime interjection. I don't have an ad or anything, but, let's stretch. Okay. What did I buy? Rate your experience? From Amazon? What the hell did I buy? Alright. You guys do your little stretch? Okay, let's do this. Cleveland Browns at home hosting the Houston Texans. The Browns are 12.5 point favorites. This is nuts. The Texans had a great game last week against the Jaguars. Does anybody expect that to continue with Tyrod Taylor and his band of running backs? I don't. So, I'm fine starting the Cleveland defense this week. I think this is a game where Nick Chubb can kind of just run out the clock. I don't think Baker needs to do all that much. And even last week against the Chiefs, it was just a lot of Nick Chubb. So I'm going to avoid starting Baker for the pure reason that he doesn't need to do much. Nick Chubb, I'm okay starting. Odell Beckham Jr. is expected to be out this week. So I think he has already been labeled out. So OBJ not playing, Jarvis Landry, and last week was a lot of Anthony Schwartz, which I was pretty surprised about. I think a lot of people were expecting Donovan Peoples-Jones or Rashad Higgins, but it was Anthony Schwartz. So I'm avoiding this wide receiver group. David Njoku had more targets than Austin Hooper, so I'm avoiding this tight end group. I'm just starting Nick Chubb, and I'm starting Kareem Hunt because, as we know, in that fourth quarter, once Nick Chubb already has 100-plus yards and 2 touchdowns, that fourth quarter belongs to Kareem Hunt, where he can also get 100-plus yards and a touchdown. Kareem Hunt plays the closer role a lot, so I think this is a game where he's going to get a lot of time to close. He'll get some garbage time. Houston side. No, I'm not starting Tyrod Taylor. If I have to start running back, guns on my head. I mean, this was a 4-person split backfield. David Johnson's going to be the guy this week. 12.5 point deficit. If they're passing the ball, it still was shown that David Johnson was the guy on the field. Even last week in a positive game script, probably the only positive game script they'll get this entire year, David Johnson still got his touchdown. So if I have to start running back this week, it's David Johnson, but I don't feel comfortable starting any of these guys. The only guy I do feel comfortable starting is Brandon Cooks because of the target share he got, and that's about it. I'm not starting Pharaoh Brown. He ran less routes than Jordan Akins. He had a touchdown, sure. This is technically a revenge game for Pharaoh Brown, but I am not starting him no matter what limited his success he had last week. So only one I feel comfortable starting is Brandon Cooks. Okay. Chicago Bears, 2.5 point favorites. How is that right? Cincinnati just beat Minnesota. And then Chicago looked like they got toyed with by the Rams. I mean, they came back towards the end, sure, but for the most part, they got toyed with by the Rams. And now they're 2.5 point favorites against Cincinnati? I don't know. Andy Dalton revenge game. Ooh, that's true. That's very true. Look. I'm not starting Andy Dalton. I don't care if it's a revenge game. I'm okay with starting David Montgomery. I like David Montgomery. I think he proved last week, even though he's not getting the same targets as he once did, he's basically just a set it and forget it type guy. Bounce back for Allen Robinson. There's upside with Darnell Mooney, but didn't really see too many targets last week, so I'm going to roll with Allen Robinson. And Cole Kmet, sure, why not if you want upside, right? Cincinnati side, I do like Joe Burrow. The Chicago defense got torched last week. Absolutely torched. Ton of missed assignments. Guys were wide open. So I'm perfectly fine. And I think Andy Dalton can do enough to keep them in this game, right? So I think Joe Burrow's a great streamer if he's available. I think he's a good start this week. Joe Mixon, as we saw last week, my boy, Joe Mixon. He was in running back 2 last week, over 100 yards. He had a touchdown. He had 5 targets or something. I think it was 4 targets. Look, Joe Mixon's looking like a workhorse. He had 33 touches last week. 33 touches. So, Joe Mixon, set it and forget it. He's looking like a true running back 1 this week. I've been talking about him for years, so it's just nice to see it finally come into place. Jamar Chase, surprise, surprise. After all these drops and after all this offseason drama, Jamar Chase ended up being the guy. He ran more routes than any other Bengals wide receiver. He had more targets. He looked great. He had over 100 yards in his debut. Jamar Chase seems like an every week wide receiver 2 slash flex. I mentioned how bad the secondary is. T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, both startable as well. So, yeah. Arizona Cardinals hosting the Minnesota Vikings. A little bit higher of a total here at 50.5. Minnesota got ran over by Joe Mixon last week, so I think Chase Edmonds can have a good game here. I'm starting him. Kyler, I don't really even have to talk about. Wide receivers from Arizona, DeAndre Hopkins obviously is a must. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins can play against Patrick Peterson. That's going to be really interesting. Christian Kirk, he was playing the slot last week. He had a ton of success. I think AJ Green is just kind of the distractor on the outside. Rondell Moore kind of fitting into his own role. I would call Christian Kirk a flex-worthy play this week, right? I didn't really talk about James Conner, but I think this is going to be more of a back-and-forth game, so I'm not a huge fan of James Conner here. Kirk Cousins, I think he's an okay start. I think this Arizona defense has definitely improved since last year. We saw them put Ryan Tannehill under a lot of pressure. I think Chandler Jones had 5 sacks. But, yeah, I mean, I think he has a much better offensive line where I feel comfortable starting him. Dalvin Cook as well, every week starter. Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, until proven otherwise, both must starts. Tyler Conklin, he was more involved than Chris Herndon last week, but don't feel comfortable starting him. Look at these. Woo! Look at all these 4 o'clock games here. Damn, we got a 50, 52, 54, 55, 55. We got some good 4 o'clock games next week. I'm excited. I'm very excited. So let's. I'm just noticing that now. For DFS, look, this is the game. We'll get to this game soon, but this is the DFS game that you want. This is going to be, put the total at 70. I mean, this is going to be the biggest game this week. Tampa Bay hosting Atlanta. Tampa Bay 12-point favorites for a good reason. Tom Brady doing his thing. Look, Ronald Jones had an ugly fumble, but Bruce Arians named him the starter this week. Apparently, he struggled mentally after that fumble. He just couldn't get right on the field. So now they're kind of letting him start the game. And, we'll see what he does with it. It's not enough for me to be like, okay, cool, start Rojo. Because as we saw, it only takes one play for him to miss the entire game. So, I'm not starting Rojo. I'm not starting Leonard Fournette. I'm not starting Giovanni Bernard. All these wide receivers are startable. Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin. Gronk also startable. I know Mike Evans was the odd man out last week, but I don't expect that to be the case for 17 games. So yeah, all these guys are startable. Gronk is proving to be the tight end one in this offense, and he could be a week-to-week value. Atlanta, Matt Ryan, I think this is a game where Matt Ryan can do better. I mean, against divisional matchups, he usually does pretty well. Running back-wise, not a great matchup for Mike Davis. I'm avoiding Mike Davis here. He's splitting, although he did get 75% of the snaps, he did have a good amount of touches, and he actually didn't look bad at all. But we saw what they did to Zeke. We saw Cordell Patterson getting involved. So I'm avoiding Mike Davis in this matchup. I think this is going to be a Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts type game. Russell Gage did not do enough last week to earn my trust. Hayden Hurst was getting more so involved. So, yeah, I mean, look, Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts, both 8 targets last week, both led the team, both disappointed. Game script is going to be in their favor. I'm fine starting both these guys this week. I think they're going to bounce back. And I'm okay starting the Tampa Bay defense too because, best case scenario, they could be a huge play this week. Seattle, Tennessee. You're starting Russell Wilson. You're starting Chris Carson. Rashad Penny's out for a bit, if that means anything. I mean, I think it's just kind of like death taxes, Rashad Penny being hurt. DK Lockett, without question, you're playing. Everett, I like him for upside, especially in the red zone. So, I don't hate Everett at all. As for Tennessee, I think Ryan Tannehill has a chance to bounce back here. So I do like Ryan Tannehill. Derrick Henry, look, you're starting him every week. He's still able to get over 10 points last week, even after not doing anything on the ground and being under constant pressure. Hopefully Taylor Lewan does better this week because he got torn up by Chandler Jones. But, I'm okay starting Derrick Henry, and I think A.J. Brown and Julio Jones have a good chance to bounce back in this game. And those are the only guys I'm going to put my trust in. This game right here. Chargers and Dallas. Don't think about it too hard. Chargers threw over 50 times last week. Dallas threw over 50 times this week. These are both subpar defenses, to say the least. This is going to be a shootout. This is going to be the shootout of all shootouts. This is going to be the highest scoring game this week. I'm starting Herbert. I'm starting Eckler. I'm starting Mike Williams. I'm starting Keenan Allen. Jared Cook, even for upside. And then on the Dallas side, starting Dak Prescott. I'm expecting a bounce back from Zeke, who was playing 80+% of the snaps and getting a ton of touches. Starting CeeDee Lamb. Starting Amari Cooper. Dalton Schultz if you want upside. So don't even think about it too much. Just throw these guys in your lineup. Mike Williams, I'm trying to find a way to push him into the lineups of where I have him. He's going to be a good play this week. He got 12 targets next to Keenan Allen's 13 targets last week. Austin Eckler, I don't think I mentioned him, but doing a little healthier this week, I think he's going to be a good play as well. Baltimore going to Kansas City. Kansas City 4-point favorites. Another high-scoring game. Potential bounce-back game for Lamar, who had 2 fumbles last week. I'm okay starting Lamar. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game, and so does Vegas. Now, it boils down to the man, Tyson Williams. The Ravens came out and said, they have 4 running backs. They're going to use 4 running backs. So, I do not, in the slightest, feel comfortable starting Tyson Williams, right? He was able to make it work last game, but he didn't do enough to kind of own the workhorse role in this team. Latavius Murray came in the second half and owned. I don't know if Tyson Williams played more than 1 or 2 snaps in the second half of this game last week, Baltimore against the Raiders. So now they're saying they're going to use 4 running backs. I think Tyson Williams is going to lose whatever passing upside he had. He's going to split the early down role with Latavius Murray. Although he may be the 1A, he doesn't have the talent that Gus Edwards or J.K. Dobbins do to be efficient enough with the touches that he gets that'll make it worth it. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm avoiding Tyson Williams this week. I don't think game script's going to really be in his favor either way. Wide receivers, Marquise Brown had a game. And so did Sammy Watkins. So I think Sammy Watkins and Marquise Brown are both startable this week against Kansas City. Mark Andrews, I'm expecting him to have a little bit of a bounce-back game as well. On the Kansas City side, do we even really need to talk about it, right? You're starting Patrick Mahomes, you're starting Tyreek Hill, you're starting Travis Kelce, and you're starting Clyde. Clyde, I'm not as confident in, but you're starting all those guys. Don't even think about it twice, right? Green Bay and Detroit. After what Detroit did last week, after what Green Bay did last week, there's a 48-point total. Look, I'm hoping for an Aaron Rodgers bounce back now that he's got his feet wet after not really doing anything this whole offseason. But we'll see. So, I'm comfortable starting Aaron Rodgers at home. Aaron Jones, I'm hoping for a bounce back. If Elijah Mitchell can do it, Aaron Jones should be able to do it. Devonta Adams bounce back. And I don't know if I really feel confident in Robert Tonyan because we don't know what Aaron Rodgers we're getting this week. So, as of right now, I'm fine starting basically, the guys that you drafted early. Starting Aaron Rodgers, starting Aaron Jones, starting Devonta Adams. On the Detroit side, I'm okay starting Jared Goff. I can't believe I said that. But do you guys remember Blake Bortles from 2015? The garbage time king himself? That is going to be Jared Goff this year, right? In the fourth quarter of every game, we're going to see Jared Goff. The fourth quarter of last game, Jared Goff had 27 pass attempts. He had close to 200 yards and a touchdown in just one quarter. So he's going to be the garbage time man of the year. That's where his fantasy points are going to come from. DeAndre Swift must start. TJ Hawkinson must start. None of these wide receivers are must start by any means. Jamal Williams, even a flex play here. So that's how I feel about that. Green Bay defense, I'm okay with starting as well. Okay? So that's every game this week. I want to thank you guys for watching. And as usual, I'll be back next week for week 3. Let's do this. Let's keep winning some leagues. If you guys have any questions, ask them in the comment. I'll be answering all questions in the comment. All I ask is what you do in return is hit that subscribe button. So, thank you guys so much, and I'll see you next time. Peace.